We've been doing some manual like that session.
Right. Yeah, we should be. Okay. One. Okay. Report and then one, and that's the right. Wait a minute. Okay, thank you. Good. All right, you can make it down. See my jacket? That was all. Yeah, that I know. Oh, so she's like, "Oh, get away from me!" So shall we go check it out? No, but we'll wait till you hear. No, that's why we should do it. Was walk away. Oh yeah. I just want to think maybe this. I don't know what she is. Amazing. She is a listener. Yeah. I think I'll put her in some like but she's in, I mean, she's in the conversation. I'm telling you, you guys, how old are you? I don't know. How old are you? You just do it without thinking. I don't know. Well, thank you so much for all of this. I appreciate it. I don't know about Ella. She's. Oh, I know. That's all I ever see.
She's got a lot of energy.
Now, maybe at least a little more.
Yeah. All right, let's make our way back to our seats so we can get started again.
He was going to get a drink.
Oh, maybe it is our.
And he said he's gonna come back and pick up all the fries. No, I. I'm just teasing. No, I know.
This might hurt.
I've been my.
Let's see if we can round up any people that are out in the hallway so we can get started.
All right, we'll give you that. I just want to make sure this was started.
Are we good?
It is started.
Before I forget, do you have the link for tomorrow's session with the family set of So it's just. Right, so. Got it, so they, so. Say that. Okay, do they know, so everyone knows me? Okay, so Thor's family and Sophia's family. And who else is gonna? Okay, it's on, they're, so they're like.
All right.
All right, we should probably get started. Can someone just take a quick
check.
quick peek to make sure we're not forgetting anyone out there? Oh, there are a few more coming in, so we'll give it another few seconds. Are we good, Lindsay? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So our next speaker is Ryan Sy, who is our head chaplain at Rady Children's Hospital. So Ryan is a Protestant minister who has worked as a professional chaplain for the last 16 years. Currently, he oversees spiritual care, bereavement, and is the independent living donor advocate at Rady's, where he has been for 13 years, providing frontline provision of spiritual care through spiritual assessment, crisis intervention, trauma counseling, working with patients at end of life. And I can tell you from a personal experience, as well as supporting physicians and staff. Ryan is a regular speaker on the topic of spirituality and grief, providing guest lectures to San Diego State University School of Social Work, University of San Diego's Nursing, and Biola University's School of Theology. I said this at the last conference that Ryan participated in. I can tell you, he's got the toughest job of anyone, I believe, at Rady's. Working with tragedies, families experiencing and dealing with the shock and loss of a child. And I can tell you, there is no person on this planet that's better suited for that job than Ryan. So he's shaking his head because of, among other things, he's the most humble, kind human being. So get your rear end up here, Ryan. Excuse me for sounding such a disrespectful. And Ryan actually is an enthusiast of craft beers. Oh, is that right?
I have, we're gonna talk about getting old. Yeah, and part of my getting old journey has been my body no longer likes hops. I have actually started to have an allergic reaction.
Oh, no.
I started to have an allergic reaction, and so I've actually switched to the Vino.
Well, I am delighted with that update to tell you that thanks to the Sulpizio family that I'm sure you know of in San Diego, they have donated bottles of wine from their private vineyard for each of our speakers.
I'm not gonna tell my wife about this.
Oh, that's between you and her. If you want to share it with her or us or whatever.
Thank you so much.
I love you, man. You are just an incredible woman. Thank you. Let's have
Don't let me get this. Hold on. I don't know how you start a talk with someone just said they were the most humble person possible, and then how do you go into that and you're gonna be speaking, right? I don't know. My name is Ryan Sy. I am one of the chaplains at Rady Children's Hospital. And as Paul said, I've been a professional chaplain for the last 16 years. And all the things he said, all those are all things that we do, but you know, it's really truly my honor. I say all the time, I learn more from the kids than they ever learn from me. In just how to live. I'm going to talk a bit about that, but it's my honor to be in that position. It's my honor to be working with families that they will take us in when they don't know us. They don't know us from anybody. that we can walk with them through some of the most difficult parts of their journey. And so it's my honor. I don't think that I have the hardest job. I think plenty of people have the hardest job. That's the amazing thing about people, right? We are all, I feel like, made for different things. And we are all given different gifts and talents. And that help us do what we do. My wife, she's a NICU nurse. I could never do what she does. And likewise, she couldn't do what I do, right? And that's a good thing. We need to have different strengths. And also, it's not only us, right? Your kids are a perfect example of us. And it's easy to start thinking of our kids, and especially if they have a chronic illness, as a problem to be solved. And so I hope with my talk that that's something that we will move away from. It is not a problem to be solved. They are not a problem to be solved. The institutions that they are finding themselves in that are not prepared for them, that is the problem to be solved. And so hopefully with this conference, that's what we're getting, right? We're getting more information, we're getting more knowledge, we're finding ways to work around how we work with teams, what are the resources and how to access them, all the above, because that is the problem. That is the place that we need to work. So thank you all for having me. I'm going to be here today. I'm also going to be here tomorrow to help with one of the panel discussions. I'm looking forward to that. The last time I was able to, I was just talking to Paul, the last time I was here speaking, I went back and I looked at the videos because the video is on YouTube, was 8 years ago. And in that video, what I identified very quickly was, I gained some weight. I've lost some hair. The hair that I have, much more gray. And it became, I was like, man, was that 8 years ago? I'm like, not only like, and I started thinking about like all the things that happened in that talk. I was talking about my son. My son at the time was 6. My daughter was 3. My son is now 14, which is just weird. That's just a strange thing. My daughter just turned 11. And I was talking about my son in his clip chart, right? He did that. He was talking in school, and the clip chart was low. And now he's telling me he has a girlfriend. I'm like, this is not right. Because even though he's 5'11", I'm 6'2", he's 5'11".
Oh.
It's like the body of a man with the brain of, like a 3rd grader or something. It's just doesn't work through. And my family have been giving me lots of suggestions on what I should do about my age. My daughter, she doesn't like the fact that I have gray hair. She says I should dye my hair. And I'm like, I'm not gonna dye my hair. I earned all of this gray. Right? This side of mine was a hospital. This side is all of my family. There's going to be lots of people that make suggestions. My wife, she's in some denial about her age, even though she's 9 months older than me. And she would say that she was getting older until she found her first gray hair. And then she was like, oh, and there was a bit of an existential crisis. Her way of dealing with that was avoidance, right? No, this isn't what happened. But it comes down to my view of that. How do I view my getting older? Is that a problem? I don't know, for anybody here 8 years ago when I did that talk? I know those about it. Okay, there were a couple people. Okay, there's a couple of old timers. Why am I talking about this? Because it comes back to this idea of coping. How do we cope with the changes, the things that happen in our lives? Now, for me, getting old, I don't care. And my wife is like, no, you should care. My daughter's like, Dad, I don't like to see you with gray hair. You should care. And other people are going to tell us how we ought to cope. And if I go by my daughter's suggestion, I'm going to have plugs. I'm going to have my hair dyed, and I'm going to have lots of different things. But it comes back to ultimately me and my view of things. And do I view them as problems? Because if I don't view them as problems, and they might be, because sometimes they are, am I going to work towards fixing them? Generally not. I'm not going to work towards fixing them. And so when it comes to our coping and talking about coping, this is a hard issue. This is an internal issue. And I'm not going to have any slides. So if you're hoping for slides, I'm not going to have slides. And the reason I don't have slides is because I want to talk at you and I want you to feel things. The last talk was amazing. I was sitting there listening to it. And it's very technical. This is not gonna be very technical. But I hope that it'll be intellectually stimulating, and I hope that it will impact your heart as well. Not only for your child, but for how we take care of ourselves. Because I think that's one of the things as parents that we are often terrible at. We start focusing on our child, which is a good thing, that's not a bad thing, but how often do we give ourselves that extra bit of time? How often are we being extra patient with ourselves? We have patience for our child. Do we have patience for ourselves? No, why? We should be doing it wrong. I should be doing this, all of the above. And so, we're gonna talk a bit about coping, what that looks like, which is very difficult in a situation like this, because when I'm with a family in the hospital, I'm usually one-on-one with them. I'm making an assessment, where are they at, what are their coping methods, and how those aren't working in that moment, and then I'm gonna help them walk through it. And that can be different because everyone in this room is in a completely different place. Some of you, maybe this might be your first conference. Some of you, you've been here since the beginning. Some of you, your child may have just been diagnosed with Jacobson syndrome or something like that. Or for some of you, it may have been decades. And so for me to say, hey, you're all feeling like this, I can't do that. Can't do that. For those of you who have been on this path for a long time, what I would hope maybe is think back to especially where you were in the beginning. Maybe pull yourself back, how you were feeling in those moments, the helplessness, the crisis. And for those of you who are maybe right in the beginning, you're still like, I'm still not sure about this path. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. Know that you have around you an amazing structure, amazing support. You have been welcomed into a family. It was one that you were not expecting, but you have been welcomed into this family of others just like you. Everyone in this room gets it. You're going to find out in the world, people don't get it. They don't understand. You're going to find even with your medical team, they don't understand. Even when they want to, they're not living your experience. You know that. Okay? And so as we get into this time, you know, what we generally see, especially in the beginning, is what people are in crisis. What is crisis? So anytime we experience something that kind of moves us into an emotional, you can come on, no, come on out. anytime we experience something that moves us in a direction where, or like a traumatic event or something in our life, we go into a time of crisis. Generally speaking, what starts that crisis? The coping methods and mechanisms that we have in our life, that they are not suitable to help us through this immediate crisis, right? They don't work. And so we get into this place of this emotional disequilibrium. And it can be depression, it can be all these things. And so in the hospital, what we're trying to do is then help prop up the things that they do, families do, so that they can cope with what's going on in their life. And you may not realize the amount of coping mechanisms you have. Usually you don't until they start getting tested, right? Now, for me, I do a lot of talking. I talk to people all day. I'm more of an introvert. So it drains me. I am drained. By the end of the day, working all day, like working with families, it's like I am drained. And I get home with my family, and then they're like, hey, Dad, what's going on? And I'm working with them, and then they all go to sleep. And then everyone finally goes to sleep, and it's just me. And it's quiet. And I can read a book. I can do these things. I need that time just by myself. If I don't get it, I'm going to be cranky. I'm going to be cranky. Why? It's one of my coping methods. Now, when my in-laws come into town, which are wonderful people, love my in-laws, they like noise. There's always something on. There's always a TV on or a radio on. There's always a game playing. There's always something making noise. There's always some kind of stimulus. And when I get home, I'm like, I can't do it. There's too much. This isn't good. And then I go, and what I do, I go and hide. I go and hide in my bedroom. I go and hide and do something like that. My wife comes out. What does she say to me? You're being antisocial. I know, dear, I'm trying to cope. I'm trying to have some coping. I'm seeing people, now couples are gonna start getting fighting with me. I'm not trying to start any fights. I'm not trying to start a fight. But it's true, right? Because how you cope, how your partner might cope, how your child copes, it's all different. It's all different. And all of them are equally valid. All of them are equally valid. My wife, on the weekend, she needs to get out of the house. And I can tell when she's stressed out, I'm like, you should go to Fashion Valley. You just need to go to the mall, walk around, do your thing. She needs to get out of the house. If she doesn't have that, she's not gonna be coping well. And see, this is what it comes back to, knowing ourselves, knowing those things that we need, making them a priority. And if you're not doing that, you gotta start. I tell my nurses all the time. I always tell them, if you wait until you need something to feel better to get through these difficult cases, if you wait until then, it's too late. It's too late. You're already in the middle of the burnout. You're already in the midst of the crisis. It has to be something that we begin and that we're continuing to do so that we can do it through the crisis. Now, we're not waiting till we're already on the bottom. We're on rock bottom before we start taking care of ourselves. We have to make it a priority, daily, weekly, whatever that looks like for you. And again, it might be go to the beach. We're in San Diego. Everybody was like, I love you to the beach. I want to go hiking. I got to go to the gym. I got to go here. I want to do this. My traveling. We just came out of, I don't know, a little thing called the global pandemic, right? How did that go for everybody? But it highlighted this need of how we can take care of ourselves through the crisis. And for my wife, FOMO. Do you guys know the FOMO? Fear of missing out. She had the FOMO. One of her biggest things, she's used to traveling throughout the year for conferences. She's going to Chicago, she's in Hawaii, she's in all these things. And all of a sudden, she couldn't go anywhere. She's like, keep down. She's like, I gotta go. I need to go someplace. And so knowing those things, and then, okay, if we can't do those things that we normally want to do, what can we do instead? Or what can we do that's similar? Or even, do I need someone else, someone outside of me, professional help, to help me to find new, more positive coping mechanisms? That's really what psychologists are there. Because we can also start to learn negative coping, negative ways of living and getting through things. When I was a child, when I was 13, my sister, she was 19, she was in a car accident. And unfortunately, she passed away in that car accident. What I learned and how to cope, because I didn't have anybody help me. I didn't have anybody teaching me. There was no one who was coming alongside me to help me cope. What I learned was, if I get close to people, they're going to leave me or they're going to die. Something's going to happen. And so what was my coping mechanism in that? I'm not going to get close to anybody. I'm going to keep everybody at arm's distance. Because if I keep everybody at arm's distance, I won't get hurt. Right? We can learn these, and I had that for 10 years. It took 10 years for me to learn that. What was the other thing I learned? I have to look for all the problems that could happen to me. I was always looking for danger and what can happen. And then I would come up with these plans if this were to happen. And I'd spend an hour thinking about plans of things that might happen. Why? To protect myself. And there might be some people on here being like, that's not normal. It's not. It's not. It's unhealthy. And so in those moments, we need help sometimes to get through that. And it took, it wasn't really a problem for me until I got married, because it was only affecting me. Once I got married, I realized now it wasn't only affecting me, it was affecting my wife. And that's what pushed me actually to be like, yeah, I need mental health, not life. Asking about all those things are. So I want to start, I started this last time with saying this. Number one, you all are the experts. I know we're here, you're here to listen to experts, you're here to hear from doctors and from clinicians and from people. I want you to know from the very beginning that you are the experts. You are the experts on your child. You always will be. And when I meet with families in the hospital, especially mom, I always tell moms, like, number one rule in the hospital, mom, always right. That is the number one rule in the hospital. Your second rule in the hospital, your bedside nurse, also always right. Those are the two people you want happy in the hospital. Mom, your nurse. My dad's doctors, don't worry about that stuff. Like, you guys, these are the two people we want. And because what? Your child is going to be specific and different in what they go through and how they go through it. And even just the questions that were just said, right? At the end of the last talk, right? asthma, immunodeficiency, all these things, everyone is different. Like, you are gonna know your child. And so when I have a family who comes in and the team's like, oh, no, all the numbers look good, everything looks good, these things are looking good. And I have a mom that's saying, no, it's not right. Like, something's not right. This is just not the way they are. This is not what goes on. I'm gonna trust that mom, that dad 100%. I'm gonna trust them over the medical team every single time. Because the doctors are seeing a picture. It's like when we take an MRI, we take a CT scan, we're seeing a picture in time. It gives us information, it doesn't give us the knowledge. And so I'm always gonna trust that. So trust yourself when it comes to being the expert. Last 8 years ago, I did a joke and I said, you know, you're dealing with really difficult children. And then I said, and these are them, and I showed this picture of a bunch of medical students. Because that is what you are going to deal with. Most of our hospitals, what? Teaching hospitals, med students, med residents, fellows, everybody, nursing students, you got students from you got chaplain students, you got social work interns, they're all learning. And they're gonna come in and they're being told, hey, you're the expert now. And they're really trying to live in that. It's like fake it till you make it kind of moment, especially when you're a student, you're trying to be a doctor now. And they want to help. And sometimes that comes off as I'm the expert in everything. And really, it's gonna come down to being patient with us, the medical team. We need your patience with us. Because we don't know it all. And we are always learning, and you are the expert. And as I said, you're now becoming part of this exclusive club of people. Of other people, which you never were planning. And I gave the example last year too. I had a patient, his name was Chaplain, and he had a very rare genetic disorder called osteopetrosis. It's 1 in every 250,000 live births will have osteopetrosis. Now I've seen 3 children with him and cared for them. And I was speaking with this mom, and you know, she spent when he was first diagnosed, they spent I think about 250 days of 365 inpatient all in a row as we were working with him. And or one day I went to go into the room and I accidentally bumped into the computer, which of course, like, you know, the screen was dark, and when I bumped into it, the screensaver went off. And what was on the screen? It was Wikipedia of osteopetrosis. So someone in the room was trying to figure out what he had. And so what are they doing? They were looking up they were looking through Wikipedia osteopetrosis, right? You are going to be. I'll take it. I'll take any laughs I can get. Take it all. And so you are going to be the expert. You are going to know more about Jacobson syndrome, more about these things. And depending on where you're from, maybe the entire medical community that you have around you. And so know that. It's hard to be patient with us. And so what I want you to find, I want you to take advantage of everything that your hospital, your medical team has to offer you. Because this is the reality. Whether you take advantage of it, you're still paying for it. It's like an all-inclusive vacation package, and if you don't go to the breakfast buffet and you only do this, it's like you're still paying for all of it. There's psychologists, there's social work, there's child life specialists, there's chaplains, there's music therapy, there's play therapy, there's healing touch, and there's Rady, and there's all of these things. All of these things are to help you to be able to move through this time, especially if you're in the midst of a significant crisis. And so I tell you, take advantage of that. And surround yourself with what and who is helpful. Surround yourself with what is helpful. Surround yourself with who are helpful, because you've probably already found there's a lot of people not so helpful. And there's a lot of people who you thought were going to be the ones who were there for you. Are they the ones who are there? Not always. Right? A lot of times it's the people that we weren't expecting, ones that come out of the woodwork. And you're like, really? Like them? I wasn't thinking that they were the ones. No. Usually, why are the people we don't expect to be the ones that come out? Because usually they've gone through something very difficult. The people who are closest to us, our family, our friends, if they haven't gone through something difficult, they just don't know what to do. And then what they do is very hurtful. They do nothing. How they do they mean to be hurtful? No. But it is. It is. Those people too, they need education too, and they want to help. And I often tell families this, I'm like, give them a task, give them something to do, help them to work. And they're like, oh, no, I can't do that. And I'm like, why not? Can't ask for help. This is my second. Well, I wasn't gonna use flag, but it's always had to happen. A little bit, someone just came in and took a flag out of it. This gets to another point. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. It is one of the most hardest things for families to ask for help. Why? We like to be the one doing that. How do you feel about receiving that help? I always frame it like this in the hospital. We have moments where we are the dispensers of blessing, and we have moments where we are the recipients of blessing. We like being the dispenser of blessing. We like being the one that's out there because why? We're in control. It feels good. On the other hand, being the recipient of blessing feels helpless. I feel like I'm not in control. All these things. I always tell families, especially in the hospital, like right now, it is your time to be the recipient of blessing, but that won't always be the case. Because there's going to be a time where this part is over. You're going to be back on. And then you know what usually happens? Someone else in our life starts going through something different or something similar. Or maybe you're here in this moment. Or you're online and you're talking to other families with the Jacobson syndrome. And what do you read? A new post that comes in. My child just had this happen. And I don't know what to do. And we look at it and go, I was there. I was right there. And it's what? I know how I felt. And then we get to be the blessing to them in that moment. And we shouldn't work like that. But I feel like that's how it works in life. The reason I'm in the hospital, the reason I'm here, talked about my sister, is because of that moment. I didn't have anybody to support me through that. And so what did I do? And what was my question at that time? Why? Why did this happen? It took me 15 years to figure out the why. When I walked into children's and I was doing my chaplain residency, and I said, this is it. I said, this is where the good can happen. Why? So that I can give back. I can help other families, hopefully, not go through the path. This wasn't healthy. I don't know why we go through the things we do, but I always tell families we can use them to do good, to show love, to show compassion and kindness to other people. That's a choice. It's a choice. We can choose to be angry and bitter. Choice two. It's up to us how we're going to approach it. The reality is that people, they really don't know what we're going through. It's self-contempt. That's what it comes down to. I think we often assume, okay, well, my family, they're going to know I need help. They're going to know these things. Nobody knows what we're going through until we tell them. And statistically, there's actually been lots of studies done on around this, especially in American culture here in the United States, that people in the United States are very giving. But the caveat from the studies have shown is that as long as you ask, if people don't ask for the help, then people will assume you've got it all together. I don't need help. That is a very American, very United States of America. When I say America, America, South America, North America, that is a very thing in the United States that is very common. Our expectation is that if you want help, you're going to ask. And if you don't, you're good. We have to tell people where we're at. And it's okay to help ourselves. I think about this like when you're on the plane. Some of you may have flown here, right? But every time you're on the plane, flight attendants get up there, what do they always say? In case of a loss of pressure, oxygen mask will fall from the cabin. And what are you supposed to do first? If that happens,
Take care of yourself.
you're supposed to put your mask on yourself. Why?
Take care of somebody.
You got to take care of yourself. And then what are you supposed to do? Then I'm going to put it on my child. Why? Because if something happened and you couldn't breathe and you passed out, and your child can't take care of themselves, who's gonna take care of them? So why is this any different? How are you taking care of yourself? That's the question. And if you can't, if you're like, I got nothing, that's a problem. I'm gonna go ahead and say that, that's a problem. Okay, this is judgment-free zone. But I want us to be in a place where we can say, hey, I'm doing this for myself. I'm taking care of myself. Why? Because it's important, not only for myself, but for my child. It is important to take care of them as well. We see this in the NICU all the time. I'm in the NICU, and families are in this, it's a very helpless place, right? And especially with dads, this is a very common thing that I said, so how are you guys doing today? And the dad will be like, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm useless. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Like, yeah, no, I can't do that. I'm just, I sit here and do nothing. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so then when you leave, I mean, you must feel rested. Oh. I mean, because you're not doing anything. And I'm like, how do you feel when you leave? I feel exhausted. I feel exhausted. I'm like, why do you think that? I'm like, I think you're doing more than you think you're doing. And then I'll turn to mom usually and I'll be like, I'm like, 9 months your child was inside of you, or maybe less, this thank you. But you retained. I'm like, what did they get from you? Mom will say, everything. And I'll say, and now that they're out of you, what's changed? They'll say, nothing. Now, if I ask that same question to dad, or they'll usually be like, everything's changed. All this is different. Everything's different. Why? Because dad, we have to learn the connection in that situation. We don't have a connection in that moment. And so we're often learning connection that a mother of a child has already experienced. She's been experiencing since the moment that she felt her child in them. And so they know, and I feel like mothers know instinctually, that we are connected to our children. And dads, we're learning how to be connected to our children. And so I will say this, your child, they're NICU, they're a baby, they're older, they're going to take exactly what they need. They always do. They're going to take exactly what they need from us. And as a mother, sometimes it's physical, it's very physical, right? Everything they need is coming from mom. As they get older, what changes? It's not just nutrition, it's all that, but it's patience, it's peace, it's a place of safety, it's all these things. And they're going to take even our strength. I feel like when they're sick, I see in the hospital all the time. I always tell the parents, like, they're going to take exactly what they need. They need your strength right now. They need all these things from us. It doesn't stop. And I'm telling that dad, like, that's why you feel exhausted. It's because your child is taking everything they need from you as well. And so how are you filling yourself back up? And the question comes back to you. If our children are always going to take from us, and as they get older, it becomes financially. It's already that right now too. They're always going to take from us. How do we continue to fill ourselves back up? Because if we don't, we're going to have nothing left. When I was, I spent 1.5 years working in the adult world at Sharp. Sharp was great. Sharp Hospital, great hospital. The problem, it is full of adult patients. That is the problem. It is full of adults. And I could not wait to get back to children's. Could not wait. But I remember I was a newer chaplain. I had finished my residency and then I spent 1.5 years. So I spent 1.5 years at Children's being a resident. Then I spent 1.5 years at Sharp before I came back to Children's for 13 years. What I didn't realize was the toll that these adult patients were taking on me personally. And what I mean by that is, and it wasn't their fault, it was my fault. Because I was giving everything to these patients and families. Every piece of it. And I didn't realize I was doing that until one day I came home to my wife and my baby son. And my wife wanted to tell me, she started telling me about her day and, oh, this doctor did this and this thing happened over here and this was bad and this was, and I don't take pride in saying what happened here. And I stopped her and I said, listen, I gotta stop. I said, I have nothing left to give you. I have nothing left to say. And it opened my eyes to what I've been doing. And I didn't realize, and I was like, and thankfully she understood what that looked like for me. And she didn't get mad at me and she didn't throw something at me, which would have been justified. And then I kind of broke down and I was like, how wrong is it that I am giving every piece of myself to complete strangers, and then I'm gonna come home to my wife and my child and have nothing left? That is wrong. It should not be. And I had to change myself. I had to put up my own boundaries when it came to families. I had to set my own limits of, okay, this is what I have for you, complete strangers, because my number one priority in my life is my wife and my children. They are gonna get the biggest part of me, not complete stranger who have cellulitis or whatever it might be. And that was a hard thing to learn. But I think it's something that we have to learn. We have to learn how to have those boundaries, how we're gonna take care of ourselves. It's already like 11:15. You always start a little late. I know we're going to talk.
No, it's my talk. You can keep going.
No, I know I got started a little late. Next thing I want to say too, I want you to know that it is not your fault. It is not your fault. Now, logically, we can know this. But emotionally, it's not so easy. Because when something happens in our life that is important, that is big, we want something to blame. We want a reason. We want there to be things just to make sense. And generally, as parents, where does the blame land? We begin to blame ourselves. Did I do something wrong? Am I being punished? I hear that in the hospital more than anything else. And I recently had a mom, I was going to the room and her child had pneumonia and she's crying and upset. And she said, when now he's 8 years old. And she said, when I was pregnant, I didn't know I was pregnant and I took some drugs. I was drinking alcohol. I was doing all these things. Is this my fault? Meanwhile, I look over at him. He's playing video games. He's fine. I'm literally talking to his mother, and he's just, look what I can do. This was fantastic. He's doing great. But what? She wanted there to be a reason. She felt like there needed to be a reason, and it needed to be a big reason. And I was like, let me tell you, let me ask, when your son was first born, was he in the hot? Was he in the queue? She was like, no, it's perfectly healthy. I'm like, that's pretty amazing right there. I'm like, a lot of times that's not what we see. I'm like, if anything, it sounds like you're being watched over, you're being protected. I don't know. I'm like, sometimes we just get sick. And that's what's happened. He's got pneumonia. It's cold flu season. And he's gonna get better. He didn't have an underlying issue. He has no chronic illness. And it's not your fault. This is just part of life. And so helping the people get through that. Because I think we also start having these feelings of, if this isn't my fault, like about what do we lose in these moments? Like feelings of loss when we don't know. And anytime we experience feelings of loss, we're grieving. Tomorrow I'm going to talk a little bit more about grief. But grief we often associate with death. It's not. Grief is about loss. Anytime we experience loss, we are made to grieve. Death is just the ultimate. That's why we think about it in that capacity. But anytime we experience loss, we are meant to grieve. How good are we at doing that in our culture? Right? Avoidance. I'm going to get on social media. I'm going to get on my phone. I'm not going to pay attention to this feeling. I just need to push a little bit harder. I'm going to push harder through this. That was my grandmother was like, Ryan, you got to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. And I was like, I heard that as a child, and I got older and I said, that's impossible, Grandma. Once I knew better, that's impossible. And I'm like, by the way, you didn't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Your family immigrated from Norway to Hawaii. Let's see how, let's be real honest. But we get into that mentality of like, I have to do this, I'm going to push through, I'm going to do these things, rather than just ride the wave of the grief, experience the loss. It's not your fault, because if we're being honest with ourselves, we all have expectations of ourselves, expectations for our children. When I did my talk 8 years ago, I started talking about, and this, I talked about my son, and I said my hope for him was that he would be a nerd. You know, a nerd. And I talked about my father-in-law wanted him to be like a jock, and he was like, you know, my father from Ohio was like Ohio State Buckeyes, and someone yelled out, "Go Bucks!" And I was like, "See, they're everywhere." And I talked about that, and I'm going to tell you, I succeeded. He is a nerd. But I think about, like, we all have expectations for our kids, right? We all have ideas and hopes and dreams. And sometimes we see now that, okay, it's not gonna look exactly the way we thought it was gonna look. Does that mean it's bad? No. Our children are who they are meant to be. What they can do and how they do it, that's part of who they are. And that's a beautiful thing. The problem becomes me and my expectations. And what I found in my life is that expectations generally lead to my unhappiness. When I do marriage counseling, before I like, I'm gonna officiate a wedding, when I'm talking to a couple, the only thing I talk about is expectations. What expectations do you have for each other, for your life? Because usually we don't talk about those things, and we just expect our partner to know them, right? And they don't, because we can't read each other's minds. It is our expectations that often lead to the greatest unhappiness. And so, and I know, my dad used to play baseball. He loved baseball. He actually had at one point, he had a moment where he had to decide whether he was going to try to play professional baseball or he wanted to do something else. And he decided to do something. And I know he always wanted me to love baseball. Baseball's all right, but once I could stop playing, I'm like, I'm done. I'm sure, I know he was disappointed. I know he was disappointed. And I knew the part where he was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about, like, you know, maybe do what I do for a job?" And I was like, "No." Because I see how much you work, and it's too much. And we all have those expectations. And so I ask that we just remember them, keep them in the back of our head, and know that we are doing a good job. We're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. You are here. Why are you here? Because you want more information, you want more knowledge. That's the difference. There's a difference between information and knowledge. There's a lot of information out there in the world, but there's not a lot of knowledge. And I would suggest limit your time on Google and doing Google searches and how much that works, especially when it comes to your child or Jacobson syndrome, all those things. Why? Because information without knowledge, it's scary. It gets scary because I read this article, but we don't know what that means, right? Knowledge goes back to a place of understanding. And so we can start being like, but I should be doing more. I should be doing more. That should, the shoulds and the should nots, that's one of my things, and like that's one of my red flags in the hospital when I'm talking with families. If they tell me they should be doing something or they should not, I'm always like, why? So what's my next question? Why? And they're like, well, you know, well, because of this. And I'm like, you should be doing it if it's going to be a benefit to you. Otherwise, let it go. Just let it go. If it's going to benefit you or your family, it's going to have a positive impact, then yeah, do it. Otherwise, let it go. Let it go. Because at the end of the day, you are exactly who your child needs you to be. If I went to your children and I asked them, I'm like, what do you think about mom and dad? They probably go, mom or dad, what they'd be like, they're great, love them. I think we often look at social media. And last year, or about 8 years ago, I helped with a talk later. The talk was shut up about your perfect kid. That was one of the talks we did as like a breakout. But in that talk, we talked about social media and how what do we do in social media? We put all of our, everybody looks like they've got the best possible life. Everybody's life is amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that true? Is that accurate? No, we often post the best parts of ourselves. And so what families were saying, or Jacob's man, but well, we don't want to post anything because it's not perfect. It's not this. And what we talked about was, and what I said that thing was, instead of like show, it was like I was telling our Jacobson family, I tell you, do not show up. about your perfect child. Do not let social media dictate what we should be able to talk about and how we should express it. That your child is exactly who they are, who they need to be, that you are their parent, and you should be thankful for them. You should be proud of their accomplishments. I was like looking at all their poster boards, and they were beautiful. We should be proud. We shouldn't shut up about it. We should be able to tell everybody about it. If they've got a problem, that's their problem, right? I always tell my wife when she said, sometimes she'll start telling me things, but I'm like, this sounds like their problem. This doesn't sound like your problem, right? They've got an issue, that's on them. So set limits on the research, information, and knowledge of totally different things. And I'm just gonna end with this, I'm already past time. Your child is stronger than you think. Our children are stronger than we ever given credit for. They are more resilient. And it comes from a place of just being in the present moment. I have to say, kids are human beings and adults are human doers. Human beings, present tense. Human beings, we live in the present moment. Kids do that naturally, which is why they generally are coping so much better than we do as parents. Adults, human doings. What did I do in the past? What if I had done that? What if I had done that? I should have done that. Can we change any of it?
No.
No. Or we're in the future. What about this? What's going to happen next? Can we change any of that? No. We have to make wise choices. And so we will look into the future to make wise choices. But once we get past about this much in my life, take control. I often tell parents in the hospital all the time, don't cross a bridge you haven't. Don't cross a bridge you haven't come to. Because otherwise we're just all this time worried and anxious about something that may never be. We're gonna make wise choices. But we're also gonna wait till we cross the bridge. Let your children give you a new perspective on their life. The one thing I love about being in the hospital, people ask me all the time, I don't want to work here. Isn't this sad or is this depressing? And I said, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is real life. And what families will tell me is like, this journey has given me a new perspective. The things I thought were problems before diagnosis, were they a problem? No, those were problems. Right? We like to think we have these, oh, I got all these problems here. One thing I'm trying to teach my children, my son, is like, son, he's starting to think he has problems. And I'm like, son, you don't have problems. You don't have problems. There can be illnesses. But we need to have a different perspective. What is truly important? Where do I want to spend my time, my energy, and my money, and my focus on all the things that we have, all the things that are limited resources? It changes our perspective. Let it change your perspective. And so that we can hopefully view the world a bit differently. Have that extra bit of kindness, that extra bit of compassion. Not only for others that are around us, but for around you. And so to close, find the things, if you're not doing them already, find the things that you need to do for yourself to keep yourself up, keep yourself moving and going. Keep it up. Okay. I know we're about time. I don't have a question. Thank you all for. I got one question. I got questions here.
I just have to say, your breakout session several years ago about shut up,
Yeah.
about your perfect kid. That, I have shared that with more people. Just like, here's a pastor or reverend, and I share it with people that haven't offended me, and it makes them stop and think, and I share it with people that have offended me. And it just encloses everything in 1 second. Shut up. These people think.
Maybe a question. Yeah, question.
Practical question, which is,
Could you repeat it
So,
when she's done?
had nothing for,
Yes.
say, 6 years.
Yeah.
I kind of think of it as like a breakup, they feel like, okay, you're together for 10 years, it's gonna take you 5 years to kind of get back. So I think one of the issues I had is if I can barely take care of myself for 1 day, I can't imagine like having to do that for, so I don't even start, right? Like my question is, how long does it take to like get back into yourself if you've been had nothing left for so long? I mean, I know it's not like a specific
Sure.
What did you think?
So the question was, how do you, if you feel like you've given your all, you've given every part of yourself, you feel like you're empty, and it's been like that for many years, how long does it take to get back to you, or how does that work out, right? If you keep emptying from an empty cup, is it gonna fill back up? It won't. It's not something that just happens. And so if we start from empty and we continue to try to pour out whatever little bit keeps coming back, we're gonna maintain empty. I know that's probably not what you want to hear, because it's not great. It is a purposeful change that we have to do for ourselves, that no one else can do for us. If we're having a struggle, I would say in that being purposeful about it, that's when we need outside help. That would be my suggestion. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with that. I tell my nurses in the hospital, every single one of them, are you talking to someone? Do you have it there? Do you have some extra help? Do you have someone to talk to? And they would, no. I'm like, you all should. No, I don't need it. But yes, you do. We all do. The things that we see on a regular basis, we all need it. We should all be accessing. Similar for you as families, when dealing with the hospital and continued admissions and the plans that you made. Oh, we're gonna go here for vacation during the summer. Oh, nope, we're not, because now we're a patient back in the hospital. Oh, but it'll be quick. Oh, nope, something else happened. Now it's 4 weeks. All being thrown under the bus, all the plans that we have being thrown at, like, it is like constantly this emergency response happening with us. And so I would say, don't expect it to just happen, okay? Don't expect it to just happen. It is work. It is work. But you are worth it. You are worth it. We are worth it.
I'm gonna push you a little bit on that, because you're a chaplain.
Sure.
And the question is, should we not be able to tap into the love and joy of God and be restored? And if we cannot, why can't we?
Sure.
What is that blockage about?
Sure. So I did talk about religious things, because that's always our dance chaplains. You know, I see families of very different religious traditions. I would say that everybody is spiritual. And how I define spirituality is everybody is looking for transcendent meaning in life, is how we define spirituality, right? We are all looking for meaning. Now, how some people will define their meaning is through a religious practice, right? So that's how they find meaning in their life. This is where I'm coming from. This is my view about God. This is my view about life. Now, does everybody have it? No. Can that be a source of strength in the face of difficult times? Absolutely. Now, if people are having trouble utilizing their spirituality, that is what me as a chaplain, that's what I do every day. So every day, my work is I make an assessment. How is the spirituality of this patient, this family? How is it helping them to cope? And in one of those ways it's helping, I'm going to promote them. Or how is it causing them to spiritual distress? So they have a tightly held belief that is now causing them distress because it's not working. And those things where it's not working, I'm going to help them reframe them so that it will work. That makes sense. So a very common thing that people will say to me, God won't give me more than I can handle. And my question then is, how's that working out for you? Now, my job is not to fix theology. My job is to help them cope. And if they tell me it's working great, because I can handle this, I can do this. Okay. I'm going to file it away. And it makes me to a point where it's not helpful. Now, most people, when I ask them that, they're going to say, not good. I can't handle this. There's the distress. I have a belief, it's causing me distress. And so now, based on their religious tradition, I'm going to work with them. Are they Christian? Are they Jewish? Are they Muslim? Are they Buddhist? Now, that is a distinctly Christian thing to say, which is also my background. And so I'll tell them, that's not actually in the Bible. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, that's not in the Bible. And they're like, well, no, but my grandmother always told me. I'm like, yeah, I know Grandma did well, but it's not there. It's a platitude. right? It's a feel-good saying that people like to say until they get into these moments of crisis, and then they find out it doesn't work. There was a pastor who said, "You will not be tempted beyond your ability to withstand," but does that mean we're not gonna be willing to handle everything? No. And so my refraining for them is, you're not meant to be able to handle it. You can handle everything, why would you need them? Why would you not need, you wouldn't need any of these things, right? And so I'm trying to reframe those beliefs. Now, so there are beliefs that are gonna be helpful, and we encourage them. Now, do I think that if we continue to empty ourselves, that we are we allowing, I'd say in that respect, God, are we allowing God to refill us for those moments? If we continue to kind of dump out everything that we have. No, I don't think that's a good spiritual practice as well, right? I think that takes time too, to kind of, I'd say, kind of align with God in those moments, to feel that peace. And so a very Christian idea is what we're promised strength and peace and all these things. Does that mean that we just get them? No, we have access, which still means work on our own. God promises peace, but I still gotta be the one who's ready to take that peace on. Right? There's work on our side, I'd say too, that can be helpful, but can also help be also stress. I hope that answers your question. I'm way past. I'm gonna be here. If you guys have questions, I'm gonna be around. I'm gonna probably not as much today, but tomorrow I'm gonna be here in the afternoon. I'm gonna stay on into the evening. And so feel free, please come and say hello. I'd love to hear about you. I'd love to hear about your child. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate all of you, and Dr. Grossfeld and Lindsay and everyone for putting on everything.
I just had an idea at the risk of offending you. I would like to request that, at least unofficially, you become our chief spiritual officer. Everybody okay with that? You are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Lindsay, you're up,
Yeah,
right?
we're gonna set ours up real quick and
Real quick announcement, we got